Germany,
Present.
Spain,
Present.
Liberia,
Present.
Guinea,
Present.
Norway,
Present.
New Zealand,
Present.
Taiwan,
Present.
United States,
No.
Mexico,
No.
Czech, Bulgaria.
No. Since there are 14 delegates, the simple majority will be 7 delegates and the two-third majority will be 10 delegates. The floor is now open. Are there any points or motions? Guinea.
Motion to set the agenda to the topic of Ebola outbreak urging immediate action.
Second.
That is in order. We have a motion to set the agenda to the topic of Ebola outbreak urging immediate action. Delegates in favor of this motion, please raise your placards. All those opposed? This motion passes. Are there any points or motions? Norway.
Motion to open the speakers list for 5 minutes.
Second.
That is in order. We have a motion to open the speakers list for 5 minutes. Delegates in favor of this motion, please raise your placards. All those opposed? This motion passes. Delegates wishing to be added to the speakers list, please raise your placards.
Raise your placard if you want to speak.
Guinea, Liberia, Spain, Norway, Germany, Taiwan, New Zealand, South Africa, Nigeria. The delegates of Guinea, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. There has been 1,967 cases and 1,080 people dead in Guinea since the Ebola outbreak began in March. The Ebola outbreak also affected the economy of our country. The loss of revenue caused by the Ebola crisis has left Guinea in dire financial straits. The president of our country said Guinea would need about 100 million until December to cover its budget gap, which will grow if the Ebola problem is not tackled by the end of the year. It's going to be crucial that Guinea gets some budgetary support so that our country's economies don't completely collapse. According to the World Bank, our country's GDP was 6.2 billion last year, and its economy was projected to grow 4.6% this year. However, the outbreak was already shifted out 2.5 percentage points from its expected GDP growth since March of this year as the tourism industry and 30 billion worth of mining and infrastructure has grown too hot. Guinea hopes every country can help the affected countries to face the Ebola crisis. Ebola has impacted not only affected country, but also the whole world. Guinness emphasized that the Ebola is a global crisis and calls on every country to cooperate with each other.
Guinea's finance is not strong enough to establish mechanism. As a result, it is hard to fight against Ebola crisis. It becomes a kind of vicious circle, which is obvious because of economic disparity in some countries during Ebola crisis. No money, no sanitation, no health security. If these countries would like to overcome the Ebola crisis, external force is necessary. Guinea hopes all of the member states can do their best to provide assistance, not only on economic help, medical supply, but also on human resources, which are one of the important factors that can lead affected countries out of Ebola tragedy. Your time to chair.
Thank you. The delegate of Liberia, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. According to CDC, there have been more than 6,000 cases of Ebola in Liberia until October 31st, 2014. Liberia has the highest death toll of all the affected countries. Although the rate of Ebola in Liberia has declined gradually in recent weeks, we can't stop to help them. We can't just win a battle but lose the war. Liberia still suffers from several difficulties. First, Liberia lacks the basic supplies such as food and human supplies such as medical equipment and beds. Second, since about 200 health workers were infected and more than half of them died, many healthcare workers are struck with fear of being infected. Besides, more treatment centers built in Liberia. We need more healthcare workers without the risk of being infected themselves.
Third, the affected areas in West Africa are being isolated by some nations. For example, the Australians banned their airline to the affected areas, and Canada instituted a pause issuing visas for foreigners from risk countries. The action influenced the economy and supplies transport to the West Africa. As a result, delegates of Liberia hope that all member states that keep donating supplies and money to solve the crisis of Ebola instead of isolating the affected areas. Thank you, and your time to chair.
Thank you. The delegate of Spain, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. The delegate of Spain believes that it is counterproductive to isolate affected countries. It is vital to ensure that affected countries' medical facilities, as well as their social, economic, and security structures, do not collapse. The delegate of Spain would also like to call on member states to not only focus on taking care of victims, but also protect healthcare workers. A Spanish nurse was confirmed of getting Ebola after looking after 2 priests who came back from West Africa. It also led to the monitoring of the nurse 83 contacts. The nurse is testing negative of Ebola now, and Spain will be declared free of Ebola in about a month. This incident emphasizes the importance of protecting healthcare workers. Healthcare workers should be provided with protective equipment to prevent Ebola, and also be given Ebola screening tests open to diagnose whether they contracted Ebola and send them to hospital as soon as possible if affected. The delegate of Spain hopes all the member states can focus on this issue so as to help those devoted healthcare providers stay away from Ebola. Your time to chair.
Thank you. The delegate of Norway, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Ebola is a global issue. Countries from around the world should take action and offer a hand to the affected countries. Immediate action is called for. Ebola affects everyone. Thus, everyone bears the responsibility of trying to decrease the damage of the epidemic. Norway donated $13 million and has sent more than 116 volunteers to West Africa to help.
From the cases that have already occurred, it has been noticed that women were especially vulnerable on the matter of contracting the Ebola virus. Statistics shows that 2/3 of patients were women, and our country believes that this may be because they are often acting the role of caregivers during this epidemic. You have the time to chair.
Thank you. The delegate of Germany, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. First, Germany wants to thank all delegates coming here to discuss the Ebola problem today. It's surely become an emergency that every country should face. Our country hopes that the whole world can work as a team to deal with this serious problem. Germany's Air Force will airlift medical and humanitarian goods and personnel to the affected areas and provide materials for an Ebola treatment center in Liberia with a capacity for 50 beds. And our country has made available more than 100 million euros to combat Ebola. Also, Germany believes that countries which are near the affected areas should be supported, especially in West Africa. Germany and France will train Nigerian nursing staffs and strengthen the Nigerian healthcare system and make preparations for dealing with potential Ebola cases to stop the spread of the disease at local level. What's more, Germany now works on developing vaccines, and 20 to 30 adult volunteers will be tested in the near future. Our country appreciates that Canada has donated more than 800 vials to WHO and hopes that all nations can share the information about vaccine development. Germany believes that it is the best way to stop the Ebola outbreak. And our country strongly suggests the people who are not related to Ebola should not go into the affected countries. Your time to share.
Thank you.
Before we continue, Brazil would like to be added to this meeting.
Госпожо, когато е конференция?
Сега почва.
Ние се виждаме. Вие видите към отзад.
We have just joined by we have just joined by Okay, we have just been joined by a school. Could you please introduce yourself? If you are just joining us and you would just like to observe, please stay muted. The school that has just joined us, please identify yourself or mute. Thank you.
Yeah. And then you should and then tell the speakers and stuff. Yeah. Like countries can respond.
Okay, so the school that has joined us, please identify yourself. Tell us where you are. Are you Bulgaria or Czech? Is it Czech Republic or Bulgaria that has just joined us? No? Neither? Okay, I guess we'll just resume. Was it Brazil that wanted to be added to the list?
Yeah, just Brazil.
Okay. Let's proceed. The country that has just joined us, please stay muted. The mute button is at the lower left corner of your computer screen. Thank you.
The delegate of Taiwan, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. The Centers for Disease Control cooperates with the National Immigration Agency and Ministry of Foreign Affairs to provide information, countermeasures, and advice so as to monitor visitors coming to and from the affected areas or other threatened regions. Taiwan has also raised the warning level in its travel advisory to 4 countries: Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Congo, asking those visiting there to stay vigilant.
Taiwan has established Ebola virus infection emergency response task force with members of CDC. If the epidemic explodes, experts of Ebola will be added into this force. The first task is to check the epidemic situation of Ebola. and adjust the quarantine and alert levels every day. It also provides Ebola virus disease travel health notice to visitors who come from West Africa. It has already commanded all hospitals to put more efforts in preventing Ebola. In addition to the domestic measurements of our government has sent two doctors to visit both public and private hospitals in Nigeria to learn the producers of checking the rules. The doctors educate the Taiwanese people there on how to protect themselves from Ebola. They also hold hygiene conference and give out flyers about the use of protective gowns. These two doctors have returned to Taiwan, but Taiwan is still keeping close contact with CDCs in US, Nigeria, WHO. Your time, Chair.
Thank you. The delegate of New Zealand, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. The situation in West Africa is dire and New Zealand's government needs to be putting its hands up more. Medical Officer of Health for Northern DHB is setting up for Sierra Leone later this month to work with Doctors Without Borders. Although medical equipment already exists for detecting Ebola in New Zealand and everywhere else in the world, the necessary tests require burdensome equipment that was limited to put an end to the mobile threat of Ebola.
New Zealand device is light, battery powered, and can send results back to the laboratory seamlessly via smartphone. And our country is on the eve of a general election. But one of the first tasks of the new government will be the urgent consideration of a range of options so that it will play its part in the international response. Yield the time to Chair.
Thank you. The delegate of South Africa, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
South Africa is abstaining from speaking.
Can the delegate or a point of personal privilege? Could the delegate of South Africa repeat what she referred to?
South Africa abstains from speaking.
Okay. The delegate of Nigeria, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Nigeria has now been Ebola-free since October 20th, and we are willing to contribute to the affected countries. We have already donated $3.5 million to Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and the ECOWAS Pool Fund for Ebola. We have deployed 600 volunteers to help aid, and it's important for the travel and trade restrictions to be banned. However, we want to make sure that each country is maintaining a high level of monitoring who is passing through borders. Yield the chair.
Thank you. The delegate of Brazil, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. While Ebola has not yet arrived in our country, this remains a global issue. Brazil urges the rest of the world to keep open borders with the affected regions, as stopping all travel between West Africa and the outside world would only cause more death and civil unrest in the area. Brazil also urges the rest of the countries to continue trade with the affected region, as the already weakened economies of the affected countries could not stand to have trade stopped with the rest of the world. Brazil yields to Chair.
Thank you. Are there any points or motions? Guinea.
Motion to introduce amendment line 1, clause 1. Second.
That is in order. We have a motion to introduce amendment line 1 of clause 1, draft resolution 2177. Delegates in favor of this motion, please raise your placards. All those opposed? All those opposed?
If you did not raise your placard.
Can I get clarification?
Point of
Yes,
information.
the point of information.
Point of information? Is it,
Okay.
is it the operative clause or the preambulatory clause?
Just operative clause.
Just operative? Okay.
The clause
First operative.
1 encourages the governments of Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea,
2.
so and so. Yeah. Okay, so do the voting again.
Okay. Delegates in favor of this motion, please raise your placards. All those opposed? This motion passes. The delegates of Guinea, you are recognized.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. The delegate of Guinea would like to change the words encourage into developed countries should help. And we would like to change Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea into affected countries, but focus on Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, and also encourage developing countries to help. That is, developed countries should help the governments of affected countries, but focus on Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, and also encourage developing countries to help.
The delegate of Guinea changed the line 1 of clause 1 into developed countries should help the governments of affected countries, but focus on Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, and also encourage developing countries to help. Are there any points or motions? Guinea.
Motion to open the speakers list for 5 minutes.
Second.
That is in order. We have a motion to open the speakers list for 5 minutes. Delegates in favor of this motion, please raise your placards. All those opposed?
How many are opposing? Quick count.
All those opposed?
All those who oppose, could you raise again or give us a quick count at your side?
South Africa moves for South Africa moves for a moderated caucus.
Nigeria.
So wait, we haven't counted the vote for the.
Open the speakers list for 5 minutes.
So how many of
the speakers list for 5 minutes is way too long. We spent 30 minutes talking for the first time. We can't do a 5 minute speaking time. It's too long. It needs to be like 40 seconds.
Okay. So
we won't get through the 6 first clauses, correct?
Yes.
This motion failed. Are there any motions? Guinea.
Motion to open the speakers list for 40 seconds.
Second.
That is in order. We have a motion to open the speakers list for 40 seconds. Delegates in favor of this motion, please raise your placards.
So it's 40 seconds.
All those opposed? This motion passes. Delegates wishing to be added to the speakers list, please raise your placard. Guinea, Norway, South Africa, Nigeria, Liberia. The delegate of Guinea, you are recognized for 40 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. There are 2 reasons why of our decision to make amendment. First, the countries such as Guinea has no ability to establish mechanisms, and now we Guinea find ourselves in more difficult situation because of Ebola virus. Guinea doesn't even have running water in hospitals. So Guinea really needs other countries' help in order to establish medical centers Providing assistance includes
Time's up. The delegate of Norway, you are recognized for 40 seconds.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. The delegate of Norway agrees with the delegate of Guinea. Ebola was not the making of any country, but it is now a global issue affecting countries all around. We should all place ourselves in the patient's position. To those who haven't been directly affected, please take a moment now. Think about how desperate we would be if we were affected. In time to prepare.
Thank you. The delegate of South Africa, you are recognized for 40 seconds.
South Africa agrees with Guinea, but would like. This is not for you. South Africa agrees with Guinea, but would like. Yield to chair.
Thank you. The delegate of Nigeria, you are recognized for 40 seconds.
The delegates of Nigeria believe that developed countries should be included in the process of contributing to this outbreak. However, it should not be the onus of just developed countries. Countries that are willing to contribute should. Some countries like Cuba, small populations and islands cannot withstand an outbreak and therefore must be allowed to keep their airports closed. Yield to chair.
Thank you. The delegate of Liberia, you are recognized for 40 seconds.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. The affected countries is not only in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. We still need to help the countries that are affected and don't have the ability to help them. You're the time to chair.
Thank you. Are there any points or motions?
Yes. Brazil.
Brazil.
Would like to make a motion for unmoderated caucus?
You want an unmoderated caucus or a moderated caucus?
A moderated.
Or would you like to motion for that amendment in front of you?
You want a motion to amend?
Okay, motion to amend then.
Motion to amendment?
Okay. That is in order. We have a motion to move into voting procedure. Delegates in favor of this motion, please raise your placards.
You got to vote on their amendment. Sorry.
All those opposed? This motion passes. We'll now vote for amendment line 1 of clause 1. The delegate of Guinea changed the line 1 of clause 1 into developed countries should help the government of affected countries but focus on Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, and also encourage developing countries to help. Delegates in favor of this amendment, please raise your placards. All those opposed? All those abstain? This amendment passes. Are there any points or motions? Brazil.
We'd like to make a motion for an amendment to operative clause number 4. And our amendment would be that some countries like Cuba with a small population and islands cannot withstand an outbreak and therefore must be allowed to keep their airports closed in the country. Though planes leaving are allowed aid and can continue aid.
Point of order. The delegate of Brazil hasn't recognized by the chair.
And we are still not vote for this motion.
Could you do it again? Brazil, start by
ask for you. Start over.
Okay, the delegates of Brazil, you are recognized.
Brazil would like to make a motion to amend operative clause 4.
Second.
And the motion would be.
That is in order. We have a motion to introduce amendment clause 4. Draft resolution 2177. Delegates in favor of this motion, please raise your placards. All those opposed? This motion passes. The delegates of Brazil, you're recognized.
Some countries like Cuba, with a small population and islands, cannot withstand an outbreak and therefore must be allowed to keep their airports closed in their country. Though planes leaving are allowed to aid and can continue to aid the affected countries. International airports like the US and Canada and France must be kept open to travel.
Photo personal privilege. Liberia couldn't hear clearly. Could Brazil be repeat again and simply?
You want to make amendments?
Emily, can you put it on the board too, please, at the same time? Okay, so just read it, as he's reading, just write it. Thank you, that might help.
Okay. Okay. Some countries like Cuba, with or small population, and islands cannot withstand an outbreak and therefore must be allowed to keep their airports closed in their country. Although planes leaving are allowed to aid and can continue to aid the affected countries. International airports like the US and Canada and France should keep their airports open to travel.
The delegates of Brazil, which line of